Hi, I'm Dino Tripodis, and this is Whiskey Business, the podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. And this is a part 2 of our podcast with the boys from Bourbon and B.S. We talked bourbon, and we talked about their podcast, and we talked about a little bit about life, but we really didn't get into a lot of the BS. Now, I said in part 1, I went off on the term bullshit. What we're going to talk about now is not bullshit, but they are questions that could lead us down some rabbit holes. And I kind of wanted to do this in part 1, but we ran out of time, so I thought I'd save it for part 2 as we get into some questions, which is what the guys do on their podcast. I was fortunate enough to be a guest on their podcast, and there was a couple of questions. Well, there was just one big question, but it went down, as I said, those rabbit holes, which led to more questions and more conversations. So, in paying homage to the boys, tonight we get into a little BS of our own. Our guests are Steve Crane, Jake Sanders, the podcast, as I mentioned, Bourbon and B.S. The guest bottle for part 2, graciously provided by Jake, Maker's Mark Private Select, which, by the way, takes us to our 95th bottle of the podcast.
Amazing.
And, wow.
The capital city.
This is... this part 2 better be really, really good.
Read the staves on the back there. There's a stave. So on Maker's Mark, the Private Select series, when people go and do their private barrel picks, they have a certain amount of staves that they put in the barrel that add different characters to the flavor.
5 Baked American Pure 2, 3 Maker's 46. Is that 1 or 7? That's 1. 7 would be too much. 1 Roasted French Mocha, 1 Toasted French Spice. Oh, my. These are all the oak finishing staves that are involved in this whiskey.
And the staves are part of the barrel that the Cooper makes.
That is true.
So each one is from a different...
Well, no. So the interesting part about Maker's Mark is they did this campaign based off of the Maker's 46. Mm-hmm. And the point behind it is that the 46 stands for the number. It took them 46 different recipes to figure out what exactly to do to make the 46 bottle, their baseline. And what they do is you have the main barrel itself, and then what they do is they put rivets in the barrel, and they add extra oak staves in the middle of the barrel to gain surface area of the oak.
Interesting.
So what they did with the private barrel selects is that they put different charred wood in there to add to the flavor and the richness.
I have not tried it yet.
Yeah.
And I've not. I've never had it, and I've never tried it. So this is a treat.
Can we cheers? You guys cheers?
Yeah,
we do that a lot on ours.
No,
you know?
by all means. Cheers,
Yeah,
cheers,
absolutely.
cheers.
Absolutely.
Jake, gotcha.
Yeah.
It's 110 proof. Oh,
That's sweet.
Oh.
That's good.
It doesn't taste like 110.
No,
proof.
not
Oh
at
my
all.
gosh.
That's that French cuvee that you're getting out of it.
that is.
Yeah. Mocha. Just straight mocha.
Look at your flavor profile.
Wait till he searches.
Your palate.
I'm a geek.
When he searches,
His
it's
palate.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we normally have.
And we just opened this, so you haven't had this bottle yet.
I've never had this.
No, I can taste the mocha, a little bitter after.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's got a weird coffee essence to it on the end there.
Not a weird one.
I'm not a big coffee guy.
Not
but
a weird
good
one.
lesson.
I love
Yeah.
coffee. That is delicious and nice long finish.
Yeah, very.
got a
It's
good
good.
nose to it too.
It's
yeah.
real
Great
good.
nose.
A lot of legs on the
Smell
glasses
it?
too.
A lot of legs.
A lot of viscosity there.
That's delicious.
The capital city,
Okay,
Columbus.
well, you know what?
Select.
Drink what's in your glasses,
'Cause
boys.
this
Then we're
is
gonna
it.
put that bottle away. Because Jake, we're not gonna go through that bottle.
Grab that one.
We'll grab something secondary. But
Yeah.
thank you for
Oh,
bringing
hey,
that.
what's that over there, Jake?
Yeah, exactly. Glug, glug, glug.
Let me do some business before we get into the BS.
Okay, what now?
Let me do some business before we get
Oh,
into
sure,
the
man. Go
BS
by
real
all
quick.
means. Do what you gotta do.
I just wanted to do a real quick thanks to Killin OOBZ.
Killing OOBZ.
Great podcast. This is my favorite podcast to relax to and let my mind drift into various topics from Dino and his guests. It breaks the monotony of my busy days.
It's a hell
Thank
of
you,
a
sir.
compliment.
Yeah,
It's a
5
lovely
stars.
compliment,
5 stars.
man.
Yeah.
So please and thank you to all the people who rate and review us on iTunes because that helps.
I should read those when I'm having a bad
You
day.
should, dude, because it's official now. Like sometimes you have a 0 rating because you don't have enough reviews.
Yeah.
We
Don't
have
read
we have a
those.
5-star rating.
We have a solid 5-star rating.
Yeah,
Wow.
so that's great news.
That is great.
And thanks to all of our Whiskey Business fans who have done that for us. We're also on any other podcasting app, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever your favorite podcasting app. Whiskey Business on YouTube. YouTube is Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and word of mouth is sometimes
recorded
the
audio-wise
best.
by Greg Hensbury, and the YouTube magnificently done by John Whitney. Who, both of you guys, I can't give you guys enough credit. On
We
it,
are
you know.
extremely jealous of that team.
Dude.
We are extremely jealous of that
Dude,
team.
guys.
because
The editing, the post
we're
No-
cheap.
no
operation
BS.
there.
as
This would not exist if not for them two.
no.
I sit here, I talk, I ask questions, and occasionally
Our bag of random gear.
Look
That's
pretty.
The day.
I just
you
jaw
just
jack
jaw
all
jack
night,
on
yeah.
that.
You're the
Talent,
you're the
yeah,
talent.
quote unquote
I like the
talent.
air quotes.
Yeah.
Talent. Yeah, you're not the
Not
talent.
really, but
You're
yeah.
You're the talent.
We had my mother on the show,
Did
and
you?
my 82-year-old mother was here for Greek Easter, and she was a guest on the show. And even though she did the podcast, I'm not really sure she understood the podcast. She never understood the whole concept.
She
of,
still doesn't know
of
what she
whiskey
did, I don't
business. Yeah,
think.
I don't know how you got into this whiskey business.
It's funny you bring up your mother, and like I had lunch with my mom today, right?
Yeah.
And when we first started, that was actually one of the conversations. I was like, no, you don't know who's listening to this. You know what I mean? Like his parents will listen to it, but like remember that early on conversation where it's like, oh, I recommended because my friend Elaine listens to podcasts all the time. So I said my son is doing a podcast and it's called Bourbon and B.S. I hope you don't mind foul language.
Yeah.
I have not seen Elaine comment on anything. So
And
I don't know. Maybe it's not up her alley.
We'll
but-
probably get into that later with your picked
Yeah.
question that you had, Dino, because that's one of the main conversations that Steve and I have had, especially at the beginning of the podcast when it started.
What?
About the fact of being like smoker friendly and
Smoker friendly.
and-
Oh well,
and stuff like that.
let's get into some of the BS questions. I found this this block of cards at a garage sale or a thrift store. I don't remember, and I just picked it up, going, you know what? I'll end up using it for something. And lo and behold, here we go. Speaking of the smoking, let's just get right to it. Here's one of the questions, because smoking is what we're doing down here.
Yeah.
Is where I think sometimes it's going to wind up being. I think smoking cigars and cigarettes, I think we're going to get forced down into the basements like the opium dens of the 30s
Already
and
there.
40s,
Already there.
where
Yep.
you can't. But the question is, if you don't smoke around anyone else, is it still morally wrong?
That's like
If it's everything we're hearing about smoking, secondhand smoke, and so forth and so on. So
if a tree falls down in the woods and no one's around,
is it still morally wrong to smoke? You guys love cigars.
Well, you're assuming it's morally wrong to begin with.
Someone is saying that. Is it morally wrong? I mean,
no, that's a good point, though. That's a good point.
Well,
but for you-
and
I'm
just real
speaking,
quick,
I'm speaking for you individually, personally.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
answer.
I'm in the
I'll-
business,
I'll
so
be the
Well,
first.
yeah,
to
literally.
say,
And the
yeah.
Well,
thing,
both of
real
us
quick,
are,
and I'm not a connoisseur of the cigars, but I think like the connoisseur, the tobacco, and the in a pipe, and the cigars, I think it's a little bit different than, no offense, pounding a pack of Winstons a day. Like it's there's
Thank you.
Hang on.
Glad
well,
you kept it to a
but
pack.
you know what I mean?
I don't wanna make you
There's a
lose here.
craftness of it.
I don't want. I'm not gonna take away from what you're saying, but what you just asked,
Yeah.
with that question, and what you just said, as far as like, no offense,
No offense.
it's
kinda-
now cigarettes. So you got cigars, you got pipes, you got all this stuff.
Yeah.
Some already.
So they're
okay,
yeah,
fair
you're
enough,
diving,
fair
you're-
enough.
You already answered
you're
the
diving
question.
into it. You're diving into it because we automatically, based on what we were taught, right, and the evolution of the tobacco industry, cigarettes became such a big business that you have additives. Initially, like now it's a big thing is like American Spirits and a couple other like Dunhills and these other cigarettes,
the one
right?
you're smoking now?
The Philip Morris came out with their competitive cigarette, Nat Sherman.
Yep.
So no. So Nat Sherman actually has been around for a long time.
I know they've been around for a long
They got
time.
purchased by Altria.
Altria?
Altria, which
So it's
is
not
another,
Philip Morris.
No, Altria is another major competitor with
Well,
Philip Morris and what's the Reynolds is the other cigarette
Well, they're
guy.
putting out their tobacco and water. That's all we got in these cigarettes. And I
That's
tried
it.
them, and they're good.
Yeah, so like Nat Sherman's is interesting. Like they have a mint one. They can't call it that. They call it hint now. So it's all so much like that used to be Winston Full Flavor. Now they're Winston Reds.
Right.
Because the colors aren't offensive.
Can you talk about that just for a second, Steve? Like, because I think that people should know that with the FDA and like how you call things like cherry, vanilla, like that's all gone out the window. Is
So
that correct?
it's interesting. So cigarettes, Tobacco Act of 2009, right? So
Just real quick, do you guys smoke cigarettes or?
No,
I have,
oh, yeah,
no,
okay.
my
I've never
old man
smoked
did.
cigarettes.
Sure.
My old man
And-
did.
Don't.
and I'm not disparaging.
No, I will tell you, I'll say it right to the camera. If you've never smoked a cigarette, don't smoke them. I mean, I've been smoking them since I was 14 years old, and I
And then
wish I didn't.
how
but
many
I
cigars
do,
do you
and-
smoke a day?
But the dramatic
3,
essence of it that we
2,
had on our
yeah,
podcast
yeah.
was the greatest
Yeah.
part. Like, if we ask Dino
Yeah.
a question and he takes a second and lights a cigarette, that's the
Let's
best
go back
part.
to that dramatic
Yeah.
pause. Like,
Yeah.
Dino, what do you think about smoking cigarettes?
Here's what I think.
As he lights up.
They're bad for you.
But then you made it look cool.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the problem.
yeah.
But I want one right now.
Yeah,
All the
exactly.
guys are smoking
it's
except
bad
for
for
me.
you, but look at this guy. He's
I want
kicking
one.
it right now.
I want one.
What was the
Just
old
gonna
saying?
light
Smoking cigarettes isn't cool. It's just something that cool people do.
Well, and I've
Yeah,
had
yeah.
cigarettes with
bullshit.
you, and I've had
It's
cigars.
bullshit.
It's, I guess, not to dig myself in a deeper hole. When I have cigars, when I smoke
I
cigars,
love when you dig into a deep hole.
it's been
Just
like
go.
a celebration. It's been like
Right.
at a wedding or
Right,
this
right.
or that. Yo, it's your son is born. So to me, it's more of a craft connoisseur type of a thing. So that's to me what
It's a special occasion
as,
for you.
as opposed to a cigarette where you're like you pound up
So
pack
I'll
or
say
3 a
this:
day.
like, the morally wrong part of that.
And there's
question,
nothing
right?
morally wrong.
Well, that was the question.
Right,
That
yeah,
was
yeah,
the
it's
question.
correct,
The question
correct,
is,
yeah.
is it, if you're not smoking around anyone else, is it morally wrong? Here's the muddying of the waters, the pollution of the question is the fact that cigarettes have evolved. They were the mainstay, right, in America, in the U.S. And cigars, they went through their ups and downs. Then you had basically like the machine rolled stuff. You had the Cuban market and everything else, and we're not going to get down that rabbit hole necessarily. But what has happened is more recently is that all of the laws that have gone into effect have been mainly based on cigarettes up until now. And now it's the FDA is really getting involved. The government's really getting involved in the vaping.
Yeah.
Which the ironic part is that by definition, if you are vaping, and so now vaping is that's now under the umbrella of the Tobacco Act of 2009. They went back and they
should it be?
They changed it.
No, it's
well,
not tobacco.
By definition, if you are vaping, there is 0% tobacco. That's not an ingredient. But now they're linking the nicotine side
the
of it,
nicotine
right?
part of it.
And
So it's not
nicotine
tobacco,
is
it's
so
the-
yeah.
yeah.
So now they're all throwing out this whole nicotine thing as and they have quickly adjusted. And when I say they, it's the government, right? As far as the FDA and everyone else, is that they're looking at this is that when you look at nicotine, they're saying that the stimulant in nicotine, which is that's what it is. It's not necessarily habit forming, from my knowledge. It's literally just like any other stimulant. It's habit forming because you
Coffee,
enjoy it. Absolutely.
whatever.
Caffeine is of the same family as nicotine, if you look into that. So
all the
so,
eans. All
yeah,
the eans.
so-
Cocaine.
yeah, cocaine. But no, so that's what they're talking about. So what they're worried about is the fact that nicotine is causing this habit, and it's cool to
not
it's
cool.
cool to jewel. It's cool to suck on this like major battery box, which I have no idea how anyone thinks that looks cool,
Bro.
at all. Yeah. I'm gonna blow a big cloud. But that's the whole thing right now is that they are saying that is leading to
Clouds, bro.
ADHD, bipolar. They're hitting the hot buttons, which with very little research. The difference is that now you have, when they do that blanket lazy type of legislation, is that cigars and pipe tobacco are being grouped into it because it's easy. And what we found in the cigar business, smoking wise, is yes, my niece and nephew initially, and my nephew's younger, he's 8 years old, will be hanging out at a family function, and he's like, you shouldn't smoke. Like I pulled out my lighter to light the candles at Easter because my mom didn't want to like go out and grab the lighter, and all. He's like, "Why do you have a lighter?" I'm like, "Evan, you know why I have a lighter? Because of the cigars, right?" Yeah,
It's because I always go to birthday parties.
We've had kids.
I light a lot of candles.
We've had kids that like walk into Tinderbox at Easton and say that say the exact same thing. Like, it's bad as smoke.
Yeah.
Just
kids
walking in,
like walking to Chipotle,
just randomly walking in and making a statement and leaving.
Exactly.
Well, we'll see it too, out front. I mean, so to answer that question.
I'm sorry.
No,
Keep
go
going.
on.
Keep going.
I was gonna say, to answer that question, morals is really, I don't think, the main part of it. If you mind offending people that aren't into what you're doing, then it's like drinking.
That's what I was gonna equate it with whiskey again.
Yeah,
like,
it's once
whiskey's
again,
drinking's bad for you.
Bad for you.
Dude, let me tell you
sipping
this.
a nice whiskey that
I always
has been
ask on my
crafted.
podcast. Like last week, our guest was Sarah Storr, and
Which got posted today.
which got posted today.
I was driving over here.
2 weeks ago.
Two
Well,
weeks
this
ago.
has been
2 weeks
recorded.
ago.
My uterus is.
My uterus is.
Are we talking about that one?
My uterus is a bounce house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
she's-
just got uploaded to mine today.
Massive
But
clickbait.
this
Oh, I
is
must
this is
have
our
not,
part
yeah.
two.
Oh,
so
part
2
two.
weeks.
2 weeks ago. I don't think like we're live all
We'll
the
be
time.
on the same
you know what I
boat,
mean?
right?
Yeah.
But I said, she didn't care for cigarette smoke, so I always ask my guests, is cigarette smoke going to bother you? They say yes. I don't smoke during the podcast.
Yeah. Morals. I don't
So,
think morals have anything
am
to
I
do with
being morally conscious at that point by
Yes.
asking?
It's a manners thing.
It's a manners
Take
thing.
the morals out of it.
I'm not going to smoke in front of kids.
Manners and morals, yeah.
Yeah, very different. You know what I mean? Like
think?
it's fun. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Really?
So
Okay.
so you guys might think
it's
this
the
is
difference
silly.
of being like, I got allergies or whatever, versus like, you're
What's-
going to hell,
What's going to be silly?
right?
What
Yeah.
might be silly.
I mean,
so,
I kind of glump. Sorry, go ahead.
Go
You
ahead.
put them all together.
I
Go
kind
ahead,
of glump.
yeah.
It's just
Manners
easier.
and
It's
morals?
easier for me. Steve and I talk about this like a lot. Like, there's a lot of things that I just like clump together, and I'm just like, okay, like.
No, morals, I think there's a greater value to that because you are actually offending people at their core, and I think people confuse that, right? So manners and everything, like, no, you can walk, you don't have to be around me, like, I'm not doing that. Or if you have a guest, does
Don't
this
have-
bother you?
No.
And they say yes, it does. You're like, cool, like,
Then
I'm
I won't
good.
do it. I won't
It's
do
like
it.
cussing.
I'm not doing it because of your
True.
morals.
And some
True.
people say it's your
God damn it.
house, do what you want,
True.
and I'm like, no, I'm asking you if it bothers you, I don't have to do it.
Yeah, no.
And I mean, I get on a plane for 4 hours. I'm not jonesing for a cigarette. I can do it. I can go and for as long as it takes not to smoke a cigarette. I smoke them because I like them,
Here's all right. So this
and
is
I'm probably addicted on some level.
You are, yeah. So then, and there's additives in there that,
Yeah.
that do that. I'm not going to get into that rabbit hole. But here's what I'll say, and this is where family comes into it. Like, so my old man used to be a cigarette smoker. 2.5, 3 packs a day of Benson and Hedges. I probably wouldn't have had student loans if he didn't smoke cigarettes. Or, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those types of things. But we had a great Benson and Hedges duffel bag. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
from the
They had great-
UPCs.
they
you
had
know,
great swag.
They had great swag back in the day. We have a clock.
My
and,
mother worked at
I
Tobacco
think we had
Land
some
at
robes and-
Sears
yeah,
back
yeah.
in the
Shirts
60s.
are
There was
great,
all
yeah.
kind of swag that came to the house.
Coolers.
Here's the difference. Even like, so my brother, who's a couple years older, when we used to get together for family functions when he first started having kids, right? So he had his daughter, and he was just like, "Don't smoke around Morgan," and it was mainly aimed towards my father because he was smoking cigarettes at the time, right? This is before his triple bypass, and then he became a closet smoker, and like it's cool, Dad, whatever makes you happy, and God rest his soul. But it was one of those things where as they got older, and we'd be at family functions on the back deck at my parents' place, and I'd be like, hey, like his father-in-law and I would smoke a cigar, and the kids would come up, and I would literally be throwing the football, or the baseball, or we're playing wiffle ball with the kids with a cigar. And my brother just kind of said, "That's okay." And I don't know if it's because it was like, that's Uncle Steve or what,
Uncle
but
Steve.
it didn't bother him as
You
much.
take that same picture in 1962, and it's Americana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
1962.
Take, you take that picture now in 2019, and it's wrong.
Well, I sent the GIF earlier of the dude from the A-Teams. Who's the dude from the A-Teams?
George
yeah.
Papard.
Yeah, he lighting it up when this big explosion.
Yeah.
It's iconic
Yep.
to some degree.
It is. There's a mystique with cigars. There's a mystique with pipes. And pipes is interesting because it's been around for so long that we get this all the time in the shop. And my grandfather was the same way. I mean, like he used to like ride around on the Amigo, which was the that little scooter. His legs got bad, his hips got bad, so we had a chairlift in the house. But there was like that yellow scooter in the house on the first floor and also on the upstairs. And on the back of each Amigo was a tub of mixture number 79 pipe tobacco. And so what we get all the time is people coming in and be like, this reminds me of my uncle. This reminds me of my grandfather.
It
because the
conjures up
scent,
memories.
smell is the strongest tie to memory.
It's funny because like Steve, he's got a lot like a history with it, where I don't really have much of tobacco history besides my dad. Like I don't even know what he smoked because he just quit cold turkey when I was 4 years old, but he smoked cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
But and then when I started smoking cigars, it was mainly based on the fact of whiskey led me to cigars. So now, obviously,
whiskey was a gateway drug to your cigars.
Yeah, if you want to put it that way, yes.
That's the way somebody's going to put it.
Prohibition.
Yeah, and Steve knows I love that era, so it kind of just creates my nuance really in what I enjoy. So it's all about flavor for me. So that's why. I mean, I was like waxing and polishing my dad's boat today for him, and I was smoking. I figured I'd light up a cigar, and the funny thing is that now my dad like smokes cigars.
Ah, okay.
So whether that's good or bad or indifferent,
but that's something you guys can do together.
Yeah. Yep.
So it bonds you. My old man smoked, and my father died of lung cancer, but he smoked 5 packs a day. And
wow.
And when you have to be smoking constantly.
There's nothing
that's an
I
effort
do with my day that I can do that consistently.
That's an effort.
Yeah. And then when he got diagnosed with the cancer, he cut back to I think 2 or 3. Yeah, 2 or 3.
How old he was?
82.
Wow.
When he got diagnosed?
80 when he got diagnosed,
still
82 when he
life.
died.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Still good
You know
life.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's
People don't smoke and they still die younger than that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, let me move on to another
on that high note.
BS question. Yes, let's close on my father's death and move on.
All righty then.
All right, interesting. Like I said, I pulled these at random, so
I love it. You're winking there, blinking.
yeah,
So what
this is
what
fun.
is it?
This is fun. Gentlemen, are you more prone to gluttony, lust, rage, jealousy, sloth, greed,
Wow.
or pride? The 7 deadly sins.
You want to go first, Greg?
No. I'm not asking you.
No, he's in.
He's in.
I will
First,
stay
Greg.
out on this one.
I've
I'm not
seen
He's the
asking
first one that went after
you
it,
can
though.
chime in after our guest responds.
No,
As guests of the house, morally,
Yeah.
I want to like he
Neither.
went after
None.
it.
Yeah.
No, I
You
was,
about ate
I,
that
I, was- I was
microphone
getting,
to go
I was
after
getting
it.
ready to say no thanks.
Yeah.
More prone to
My wife and
gluttony,
kids are gonna
lust,
listen.
rage, jealousy, sloth, greed, or pride? This is an interesting question, especially since we have a very diverse age group. We have 24.
Yep.
We have
38
we have 60.
Yep.
So
35, so in
all right,
between
so
a little bit.
we're in the same age. So where you're at in life right now, what are you more prone to?
It's not really just because of where I'm at in life. It's just kind of like my personality, and I think it comes with my past with sports. But it's Steve knows I'm going to say rage.
Rage.
Honestly, I don't know what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
There's a top 5. I feel like right now.
It was yeah.
And I love you,
yeah.
brother. That
I have a top 5 of my deadly sins, and here
Yeah.
they go.
No,
Not all of them.
I don't want to say rage just because I think that it has like a negative connotation to it.
All of
but-
these fucking do, dude. These
I
are the
know,
7 deadly
but-
sins.
yeah, but so when, and I don't want to always bring up football because you have to understand. I played football for 16 years.
That's fine.
And so
I get it,
and I talk a lot about on Bourbon and B.S. But so it still is a big part of my life. But so with football, I remember when I was 6 years old, and my main call to life at that time was one statement that my dad told me, is that you have to harness the rage. And I was 6.
You were 6 and you had to
That's a
harness
classic-
your rage
that's a
at
classic
6?
And I was
statement,
6.
you know?
I would
So
put that on a T-shirt.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
You guys should do it. Bourbon and B.S.
dude,
Harness
you'd
the
have no
rage.
idea how many quotes we need on T-shirts.
That's like a weekly thing for us. Like
right.
that's the T-shirt
That's
this
the
week.
We should have weekly T-shirts, really,
Yeah.
if we could. But so that I think it did help with football, because I was able to transfer my rage into foot. It's real easy with football. So I think rage, but being the fact that now I'm in the real world, it doesn't work so well. But my second would definitely be lust.
Lust.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I like how you tailed off on that. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, but
Yeah,
by the way, like,
Rage.
tomorrow
rage.
it's lust. Next,
Exactly.
no, you can't.
You can't just leave. You can't just leave
That's-
lust on the
that's-
table.
That's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
All right.
So
You're prone to lust, but I'll give you an out. I'll be kind. I'll be a great host. That's
why I like you, Dino.
I'll give you an out. Is your lust obviously for the person that you're with right now?
yes, yes.
Or is it just lust in general?
No,
Are you
it's
lusting
for
everywhere you go.
No, it's for Alicia.
well, that's love then. That's not lust anymore. I mean,
But I think a little lust mixed in with the love
Yep.
just accentuates it.
I think lust is not for the person you're with.
Interesting.
I think. I
Really?
mean, that's being sexually attracted to the person you're in love
But weren't
with.
you?
and-
But weren't you sexually attracted to the person you eventually fell in love with?
absolutely. But then you go back to that
At
moral.
one point, yes.
Oh,
So you say
That's what. This is what I have to look forward to.
Are you saying that the
my
lust part of it goes away?
it can.
Yeah.
It can, but I don't think so. Lust,
And
you
why
go by
why does it
definition-
go away?
Well, I think there are so many factors there. If lust goes away for the person, and lust, it's not necessarily. I don't think when I look, and I have a history in the church, and it's one of those things like lust is typically for your neighbor's wife, right? That's where it all stemmed from.
Do not covet your neighbor's
It-
wife.
in my opinion,
Well, first-
I'm of the opinion that it came back from lust as a negative connotation.
When you say you have a history in the church, what does that mean?
I was raised in it and did a thematic sequence. At one point, I thought I was going to be a pastor.
No, really?
Yeah. I'm
How
no
cool
longer
of a
religious.
pastor would you have been?
Yeah, I'm no longer religious, so probably not very good.
So now,
But he's perfect with a bald head and beard.
Well, they can't see that on the audio.
I know.
No,
that's why I had to
but
tell
they
him.
can.
You
But
too.
we can tell you. Watch the video. Then.
All right,
Whiskey
so-
business
so-
with Dino Tripodis.
No,
No, I find this
All right.
fascinating
Which part?
that you were in the church, out of the church.
And now you look at me now, and you're like, you were never in the church.
If I go with what I said in part 1 about perception being
Yeah,
reality,
right.
to look at you like no, I would not consider you to be a guy that thought about being a pastor at one
Oh
point.
yeah, I did. So that's where I'm looking at it from a judgment, from a judge's standpoint. You should always, if you're going to use the term as like lust, as being attracted to and wanting to have sex with your significant other, or and taking the sacrament of marriage out of it. I mean,
Right.
this is 2019. I think it's all polluted. Like it's all diluted at this point. You know what I mean? Like you're not saving yourself from marriage. There's very few people that are doing that anymore. But if you are committed, if you're in a committed relationship, then that's not lust. That's not a negative thing to be attracted and want to have sex with the one you're
I
with.
get what you're saying. Lust is going to the strip clubs, looking at porn, doing.
And honestly,
doing
like my
whatever.
girlfriend literally was just at the strip club for the first time, right? Well, it's just different for a female, but I'm saying like it's like
Why is it different for a female?
Well, it's interesting you say that because she actually was like, yeah, I actually like touched this like this. They bought me a private dance and she's like touched my tits and she's like I did and I was like, yeah, it's not that great. You know what I mean? Like
So she
just not into
experienced
it.
something.
That's
She-
good news for you.
Well, yeah, going back to the previous statement on the other podcast, I think it was where it's like, too bad she's a lesbian. And it's like, no, she's also, So I'll say this: is that lust is if it's gonna put in jeopardy your everyday.
That's I think
That-
with
that's
any
the
vice,
sin. That's
with
the deadly
any
sin.
vice, that's where you cross the line.
Yeah.
Is when you sacrifice something
See,
that's important to you.
I think everybody, we're all talking about lust in respects to sex and lusting after another person. I think there's there's different forms of lust. There's different. There's a lust for life. There's a lust to create.
Great point.
There's a lust to.
Well, I would say the same thing. Gluttony. Like there's a.
Well, that would be mine. That would be if I'm prone to anything, it would be gluttony.
But not the eating part.
No, the eating part.
The eating part. So
The
that's more matter of fact
No, the
based
eating
on what
part.
you're
No, the
saying.
eating.
Yeah.
Gluttony, eating,
Excess.
drinking,
Excess.
You know,
Excess.
See, I think in that term,
I like
the
that too.
excess.
I-
is the
like,
crime.
when it
That'd be
comes
my
to
third.
The gluttony would be my first one. It's like if I love, if I think this is a great pizza, can I be content with having 3 pieces of it? No, I want to eat the whole goddamn pizza. You know, and
I don't eat because I'm hungry. I eat because I hate myself.
No, I've done that. I've done
He
that
said
too.
that before, yeah.
I've done that too. I've sat over the sink with half of a cake, and hello, what that bug just came out of
I
nowhere.
thought I threw him off the table earlier.
It's a skeeter.
I should have just smacked him.
Checking
Oh,
that
just because we
mic
got that
volume.
window open.
Yeah,
We've got that window open, so
that's
we're
all
gonna.
right.
I'm gonna knock over your mic.
Yeah, it's a big. You
I
got
injured
him.
it.
You
I
messed
think I
up.
injured it.
You
Now he's
got him.
angry.
You dented him at least.
It's a
You made,
glut-
All right,
you made
let
him
me-
think
let me-
twice.
I'll answer that question, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Like there was a time there was gluttony for me, and I was going through my mid to late 20s, and I was going through struggles with my last career. I was married before, and so like gluttony was, unbeknownst to me, probably that deadly sin that I was probably doing. So it was like, you know, at the end of the day, 8 o'clock, we're watching TV, primetime TV, you know, whatever show was on, like Lost was on, all that stuff. You know?
Yeah, lost.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, you're sitting there and it's like, all right, let's grab the bag of chips and you know, Frito-Lay, like jalapeno and cheddar, like cheese product.
Right.
You know, it's not cheese, it's not a cheese dip, but you're just doing that and
Cheese
it's like,
product.
yeah, next thing you know, like, oh, the can's done and there's 3/4 of the chips gone. So, all right, show's over, I'm going to bed. Like, yeah, so I realized that later after all that stuff because everything feeds into it itself, right? So now when I look at it, and I'm not trying to justify it, but if I had to pick from the 7 deadly sins, it's a pride thing. But that for me is a motivator that, you know, if I'm not doing things right, it's not about pride of like people respecting me, it's the fact that I use that as fuel. Is
Pride
that-
in yourself.
Yeah, pride in myself, the fact that, you know, if I'm doing something wrong, that's affecting other people in a wrong way, you know what I mean? And you know, you Dino, you know, with the years you spent in the public eye or public ear, more accurately, if you're not living your life to the respect of others that are listening to you, you will adjust accordingly, but it's because you care. And knowing you as briefly as I have, I don't think it's necessarily because it's going to affect the ratings and I'm going to like lose my job. It was literally like you care about the people you're talking to.
Well, part of the reason I think I was successful for the 24 years I was on radio is that, and it was beneficial to me, is that I didn't have to play a different guy on the radio than I was off the radio. The guy that was on the radio was the same guy you got off the radio.
I
Now,
love
granted,
that.
a somewhat possibly more sanitized version, given
Sure,
the fact
yeah.
that we were, you know,
FCC, right?
a FCC and a light rock station and a family station. But there was no mistaking that if you listened to Sunday 95 over the course of the 24 years, you know that Dino drank, you know that he smoked, you know that he gambled, you know that he enjoyed things to an excessive level, and had no problem talking about it. So there wasn't like I had to be Dino on Saturday 95, and that was a different deal, secret life off the air. The two flowed very well together, which made my life a lot easier.
Well, so there you lift the veil, right? So
I lifted the veil
you,
to a
you
degree.
filtered it. You filtered it
Of
because
course you filter it.
of
We all filter.
You know, I can't be riding like, you know, we talked about this, like, you know, my mom, you know, driving her Chevy, you know, growing up, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, Dino and Stacey are on. I'm like, I don't like any songs. I'm younger or whatever, and then like,
hey,
Dino,
neither did I.
yeah. I had that when I did the
Welcome
college
to the
radio
club.
for 2 years. So I was like, oh god, like, oh, Vanilla Ice has a new rock album, and this is one of our options. I'll play it, but
See, that's the funny part. Like all my mom did, all we did, like when I was growing up, was listen to you. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
if
so
you noticed
weird.
when we had you on the Bourbon and B.S. podcast, like
Yeah.
for the first like 10 minutes, I was like, like I was almost like starstruck for a second.
Well,
so,
that's
It's
silly.
funny.
but now like this is just like
Now we
an
realize-
amazing-
Now you
Now
realize.
we
Now you
realize.
realize.
No, it's just a
He's
cool-
This
cool-
fucking guy.
He's just a
It's a cool
chain
experience.
smoking, bourbon drinking asshole. So
Well,
I don't know
and
what
I
the
wish
hell
I would have known him earlier.
But
No,
these
but
are these are the things that life brings you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it's
So
amazing.
it's interesting. I'm not saying like to promote those 7 deadly sins.
No, I'm not
but
promoting
it's
them, but it's
literally
interesting
like,
to be honest about what you're
it
prone
doesn't
to.
have to be the extreme. Like that movie 7 is an amazing
Yeah.
story.
Love
and
that movie.
and that is to the extreme, right? So that's where it's like at this point in my life, it's like, yeah, there are times where I do a cheat meal, and that's gluttony. Like you eat until you hate yourself. Like absolutely, like I'm gonna do that just to
Eat until you hit yourself.
Yeah.
hate yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the what was the laziness one? It was sloth. It's
Sloth.
like there
Oh,
are some
yeah.
days off where I'm like, I am not
Oh.
leaving the house. I'm hungover. I'm not leaving the house. Now, is that how I live my life? Absolutely
No.
not. However, pride part, I'm surprised that's part of it, because if you live your life a certain way with pride, like I
But pride can
find
go.
myself.
But pride can go to much like any of these other sins. Pride can go to an excessive level.
it can.
What was the pride in 7? Now that we're
I
talking
don't
about
remember.
movies,
I don't remember that
either.
part.
I don't remember.
Do you remember,
the part either.
John? Yeah, I see that.
Let's
more
take a
of-
break and watch the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll be back in
yeah,
4
yeah.
hours. No, I see that pride is more of like the asshole celebrity. You know, I'm better than thou, etc.
Yeah, it's all about that. But
Um,
I think there's a value. So it's interesting. Like a
But
lot
yeah.
of those sins, there's a value to it.
Sure.
There's a
within-
value to pride for sure.
So that whole thing, anything in moderation type
See,
thing.
I have a problem with pride because, and I've echoed this sentiment privately to these guys as well. Like I'm proud of this podcast, but I'm not always proud of myself for doing the podcast. It's like my own worst enemy is me.
Yeah.
So I
can
sometimes-
relate.
I have a hard
like-
time.
yeah.
I have a hard time taking any type of self congratulations.
Yeah.
You can't take a compliment.
No, I have a hard time taking a compliment.
But at the same
really
time,
do.
you're doing what you're doing for so long, right? So that's where I can see someone that feeds off of it. I could 24 years in the radio
Yeah,
business,
but-
right?
and I've
Like,
never-
Oh, this
Like,
asshole!
when he
This
says-
asshole just wants to hear himself talk.
When he says,
know what I mean?
I stuttered for 10
Oh,
minutes,
yeah,
I don't
Oh, you
get
do?
that. I don't get that at all.
Yeah.
Because in the 24 years I did radio,
No,
I
yeah,
never
you're
once
right.
thought that I was any different than I just thought I was a guy that had a really cool job, and I was very thankful for having that cool
Well,
job.
yeah.
And I know that sounds like bullshit when I'm saying
No.
it.
No, you
but
do
that's-
have,
but
you
I-
did have a
but
cool job.
it's
But that's
true.
the key. That's what makes
Not to blow
you.
smoke up your ass. That's the reason why we're still buddies. Like, if you were an asshole, like I worked with asshole radio talent in the past. That as soon as I left that radio station, I've never spoke to
Right,
them
right.
again.
Yeah.
So like, I think there is that humbleness in which you also embrace.
So when you ask
Anyway.
me why I'm not on the radio, is because I'm that big of an asshole.
You're a dick.
Like I
You're a dick.
have a great voice, and then people get to know me. Like this asshole has nothing to say. Like
Well, that's
I
not
will
true.
never hire.
People
By
listen-
the way, gluttony for me, and not necessarily food, but when I get into something, it's all in.
You are. I will.
That's enthusiasm.
Yeah, well,
I
gonna
sometimes.
justify
I
that-
sometimes
that
get
thank you.
is
I like that. I'll
concerned.
tell my wife
With
that.
whiskey?
Yeah.
Since you
Enthusiastic.
started whiskey business, I sometimes get
well,
concerned.
but it's
that
other
I've
things,
corrupted
too. It's other
both
things, too.
Hansberry and John Whitney.
Not just
as-
whiskey,
as,
it's
as
anything.
well.
My dad feels the same way about me with drinking, so it's fine.
Is it ever better to do something wrong to prevent a greater wrong?
Ooh. Yes.
You're gonna have to.
You jumped on that.
you're
Go,
gonna-
yeah.
I jumped on it because it's
Is it ever better to do something wrong to prevent a greater wrong? You say yes. Do you have an example to follow it up with, or at least a thought process to go along with it? Because I tend to agree with you, and I will say that yes, I have done something wrong to prevent greater wrongs in my life.
So you already have an example.
yeah.
Well, I've got a resume of examples, sadly,
Yeah.
or greatly, depending on how you want
Well, I
to look
think-
at
Well,
it.
it's kind of I don't have an example, but say, I mean, thinking out loud. I mean, think about one of those things where, say, you have a friend that got in a really bad fist fight in a bar, and you're hammered. Do you, in that moment, are you willing to call an ambulance, and that has alcohol to deal with at that point, right? But in that moment, you call into your action of yourself, and you get in the car and take them in the car, and you're rushing them to the hospital. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to get hammered and do that, but what I'm saying is what's your first thought? What's your first thought? If I was in that situation, and that just came into my head at the moment that you asked that question, is that no, I would put them in the back of my car and rush them to the hospital.
And you consider that to be something wrong to prevent a greater wrong, so they don't get busted for whatever the case might be?
He's saying drive while maybe he shouldn't be, so
Right.
that there's
Okay,
so
I get it.
that
I didn't take it from that. That's good.
Yeah, that's
That's
what
what
I
I'm-
was
that's what I'm
meaning.
taking
That's
from it.
exactly what I
That's
was
good.
meaning.
Good read.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, you
Thanks.
let in, Dino.
Yeah.
What do you think? I
We're
just
friends
chime
now,
in.
Greg.
Yeah, we got it. By the way, let's
I
go
will
out of
say,
this.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you, Dino, you have apparently countless
Yeah.
accounts of this. I will say, yes, you can do as I look at it as long as you come clean.
Oh.
Like a white lie to take care of a bad lie is one of those things that will never go away, especially if you were at fault. You can never clean your conscience of that, and that's something you have to live with. So if you're doing something like Jake just said, and you're doing it because you're trying to protect someone, I think that's amazing. But if you're doing it for yourself and you're going to do a white lie to do that, if you are in my opinion, you have a good moral compass. You know you're doing something wrong to cover up something that's greater, and you're hoping that the greater is going to go away.
I do think I have a good moral compass.
From what I know of you, you are.
I think I do have a good moral compass, but it's interesting, what goes into having a good moral compass sometimes pushes you into situations where you have to do something wrong to prevent a greater wrong. I mean, you guys don't know my whole life. I mean,
Certainly.
there was I've said it. I don't know if I said it on the podcast before, but I feel like I've led two lives. There's 24 years in radio, but there was a lot of stuff before that, and I was in a world before radio and stand up where I had to do something wrong that would be perceived as wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
To prevent greater wrongs.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I'm talking about I talk about rabbit holes.
You want to go down it, or you want to like summary?
No, just there's evil people in the world.
Absolutely.
Every day. And there's more evil now
Than ever.
than ever, and maybe because we're more conscious of it.
And someone said that 60 years ago.
Yeah, you're right. Somebody did say that 60
It's
years
all
ago.
relative, right?
It is all relative. So the things that I did, if I did something wrong to prevent a greater wrong, it was to prevent to snuff out a greater evil. I've got some past that still haunts me to this day. I mean, some of this stuff. So have I rationalized it away? Probably. Have I morally dealt with it? No. Sometimes it still haunts me to today.
Well, is MASH the episode? Is it the final episode?
We're back to that.
MASH. We're back to MASH.
I love
Back
that.
to
I
MASH.
love the fact that you can bring this back to television. By all means, go for it.
Well,
Yes.
okay, so they
Lighten the load now.
well, we're talking about dead babies now. They're in a foxhole, or I don't know. They're in the bunker, and someone smothers the baby.
Jesus.
To survive the entire
Yeah. Colony or
whatever.
group,
Yeah.
whatever.
So I mean, luckily, thank God, we are in positions where it's not life or death. It's like this or that. I don't know. I guess my point is that like
Literally
yes,
life or death.
yes,
Based on the
yeah,
example,
yes,
it's literally life
yeah.
or death. What you just said is
Luckily,
literally life or death.
unless you're
Yeah.
in war or in some bizarre scenarios, like we're talking about white lies or this or that. But luckily, we're not in the position where we could say to sacrifice one life for all or whatever.
Yeah,
But,
so
But that-
so I don't know. I'm just
That's like
trying to
asking a
justify it.
soldier,
You know what I'm
like,
talking about?
Yeah,
You know
I
what
totally
episode?
get-
you,
I know
what episode is that?
I don't know what episode it is,
But you know what I'm
the
talking
episode
about.
Yeah, I have
But
the,
is it-
I have the entire match series.
as you say
We're
that,
gonna watch
Greg,
it.
that's like asking like a soldier, like if you're in war,
Would you kill
would you
XYZ?
kill? And yes,
Right.
because it's,
You have
I'll
to.
say that,
it's
yeah.
for that greater good.
All right, so let's
on a
segue.
personal
Dead
level,
babies.
On a personal level, I will say this: like, no, like based on the fact, like when you have to make a decision. Jesus Christ! When you have to make a like greater bad, you know, with a lighter good or a lighter bad, you know, you make that decision.
You just gotta weigh the judgment.
That happens all the time. Business, same way.
As
Do I have
long
to
as
fire
it's-
someone
Sure.
because, you know, I do.
Everyone else will
yeah,
survive.
He's got,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
he or
yeah,
she
yeah.
has kids. They're doing this, and you know, it's like they fucked up and all that stuff. But it's like I also have to look after the other 100 employees.
Right.
So if I give them an out, now all of a sudden the whole system is fucked, right? Like the whole system is not going to be the same because next time I go back after this person, they're gonna be like, well, what about this
old
person?
boy?
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yes.
And you're setting an
When it comes to
example.
personal
at that point,
things,
right?
and I'm sorry if I took that.
No,
I'm
no.
not sorry.
Don't be sorry.
I actually took it back to like the white lies and everything else. On a moral compass and everything else, if you're doing this on a personal level, it's legitimately if you like, and this is scaling it way down to a personal life and your emotions. If you have to justify it, just fucking come clean because this will never leave you.
Right.
When it comes to business, and there's not as many emotions.
Did you like that pour, Greg?
That was a good pour.
I hope they picked
That
up
was a
on the
strong
audio.
pour.
Yeah. When it comes to business or greater goods, not just emotions, it's all about the greater good. As long as you consider it, but you can't just keep letting more water into
No,
it.
no,
You can't
no,
keep doing that.
No,
But
no.
when it's
and
based
that,
on
and
your
that, and that's it. That's it. I couldn't let more water in.
On a personal level, if you're gonna be like, oh, white lie is not gonna hurt anyone, I'm like, no, white lie is gonna hurt you, and you're fucked, because you will not. If you have any moral compass, you will never be able to get past that because now you feel guilt because you lied.
Oh, I have guilt.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's
Good
I used
people.
to.
Good people have guilt.
I
Let's add that into the pot.
who said that?
I said that.
Good people have guilt.
Good people have guilt.
That's on
If
the
you don't want to hurt
the
someone,
next
that's
whiskey,
why you
Bourbon
lie
and
to them,
B.S.
but you're really not
t-shirt.
doing what you think that would hurt them. Like you're already.
No, this doesn't go. That question for me didn't have anything to do with lying. It just
This is the worst
It's
game
actions.
of Cards Against Humanity I've ever
The-
played.
I love it. No, this is
He's the
great.
one. He's the one that picked it too.
well, I
you
said I
know.
picked them at random, and I just saw which one because
Are these Pictionary cards?
no, these are some. I told you I got it at a thrift store or garage sale. It's called Table
They're that
Topics.
game you
There's
put
a
like the
reason that they
dentist
got
things
rid
in
of
their
these
mouth.
It is.
You know, you hear the dentist things in their mouth. They got to do that.
There's a
This is
reason.
charades now?
There's a reason they got rid of these cards.
Yeah,
because
right.
They,
They're
they
bad.
Are, yeah,
they're bad
like,
questions.
No,
these
they're
are
great
evil.
questions.
This
Is
They're
it
great
right?
question. Go.
Here's. I'm just going to stay on this topic for a second, then I'll go lighter.
Go,
Ready?
go, go,
It's
go,
more
go,
of the
go.
same, but yes.
Is it more of the same?
Yeah, it's more of the same. But go
Yeah,
ahead and ask
go
it. We're already
ahead.
on it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Is it right
Let's
to
just keep
kill
it-
someone who committed murder?
Let's keep it
Yes.
quick.
Oh goddamn.
I mean, this is
Every time.
Let's
You keep
let's
chiming
let's
in.
let's
Every
let's
time.
secure capital punishment right now.
Oh, I don't
every
even-
time.
oh, see, you know what? I didn't even think about capital punishment.
Well, that's what that is.
That's exactly what
The
that
first
is,
thing I
and I
thought of,
agree.
the first thing I thought of was if somebody killed somebody that was near and dear to me,
Nope.
would I go after them?
Yes.
Yes, I would.
Dude, I just got done watching Hatfield and McCoy's, and I'm like on this shit right now.
I'll go
right.
political, and
ahead,
it's
Steve.
if you bringing the justice system, bringing like all sides of the story, like murder is defined that you have killed someone, right? Not out of self-defense.
Last time I looked it up, I think
Yeah.
that's
That you
what I
put
said.
that
Yeah.
in.
Not out of
Yeah,
self-defense,
not
right?
self-defense, no.
But that's
You
the looseness
plotted
side
it,
of it.
you
You know what I
wanted- you
mean?
did
Like,
it, you-
well, plot that's premeditated, yeah, absolutely.
Premeditated,
But
you-
if
yeah.
if you murder, air quotes, you were big on that earlier, air quotes, you killed someone, is capital punishment okay? Depends on the circumstance.
Being somebody who thought they were about being a pastor, I have to call you out on the eye for an eye.
That's fine. Yeah, so eye for the eye.
Yeah.
What's your answer, though, Steve?
So my answer is someone comes in here tonight, right? We're
Right.
sitting in the basement where apparently people may or may not
done.
get out of.
I can
Several
guarantee-
crimes.
I'm
I can
defending
guarantee
myself.
I
If
can guarantee you.
For those of
safe
you out there,
passage out of here
safe
this
all I
passage.
ask is that John actually posts these.
Unless I fall asleep in the chair.
But no, I mean it's subject. It's subject to what the circumstances are and the definition of murder and the society you're in. Because if you kill someone, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? Like we go back to that military standpoint. You know what I mean? Like you shoot someone dead, so you ended a life. Are they subject to that? I think these are questions that are good, but they're also they're feeding
they're not yes/no questions. I mean,
Right,
they are.
right.
Yes, I would. I mean, yes, I.
No, I've never
yeah,
killed someone.
If
but
someone
if I was in
murders
that
someone out of
instance-
their like cold-hearted, like I want to
You wanna
murder
try tonight?
someone.
Let's go.
I'm gonna,
Let's
like,
go. Let's go
I'm gonna,
find somebody.
Like,
Piss me off, Greg.
I'm gonna rape and murder. Yeah, you should die. You were dealt certain deck of cards. I don't care what
I
your
think it
childhood
depends. I
was
think
and all that stuff. Like just you're done.
If you go with the capital punishment thing, you're either for capital punishment or you're not for capital punishment, or you disagree with it.
Right.
But when I first read that question tonight, is it right to kill someone who committed
You
murder?
shuffle those cards.
The first thing, no shit. The first thing I thought about was if somebody near and dear to me, my significant other, my mother, my sister, my daughter.
That's subjective.
All right,
That's not
can I
objective.
get- It is
That's
subjective.
subjective.
It is
That-
subjective.
that-
I want
that
Greg
question
here.
is
Yeah,
subjective.
all right. Here, so
subjective.
this is.
I want Greg
this
You
is
gotta
here.
go back
the-
to objective.
All right, so
I think
we're
think
visiting
given my
family.
previous answer to the other part, I don't know if I can be objective.
We were visiting
Gotcha.
family out in Washington D.C. area. I was out of town a couple weekends ago, and so this is the most bizarre story, and this was true. We were outside playing ping pong in the front yard
in Washington.
in
Prison
Washington.
rules or
Well,
just, like,
it
friendly
was
rules?
Maryland. It was rural Maryland, so I say D.C. area.
Friendly rules.
And all of a sudden, a rabid fox. This is a true fucking story. Comes up and bites my little cousin, my cousin's daughter, in the ankle.
Wow.
It was the most just random, bizarre thing.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Man.
So all of a sudden, we go on this fucking witch hunt
to kill
Fox
the fox.
to
hunt.
kill the
It's
fox.
called a fox
well,
hunt.
yeah, now it's a fox hunt. It's a fox
Yeah,
hunt.
yeah.
So we go after.
No, we
this
actually
thing.
went after witches that night.
We thought the fox was
Unrelated.
a witch.
This
So-
was a
Fox
Disney
was-
movie.
yeah,
Can I add
A
that?
witch put a spell on that
on
fox.
that fox to
Yeah,
get rabbit.
we
So
went
there
after
are
witches.
3 doctors in the house, and 2 of them, including me and my other man and the father of the daughter, we go on this fox hunt, and it's the whole point is like, why are there 2 doctors out here who could be treating the victim, my poor little cousin?
That's a great point.
While we're out there. We've got baseball bats and BB guns,
Baseball bat, really?
and like
How
literally,
good is your swing with a baseball bat?
well,
And
and
how
you got to
close are
get
you gonna
close
get
to
to the
it.
fox?
Exactly, because it was literally this
If you got
witch
a baseball
hunt,
bat,
fox hunt.
my mind goes, you're thinking at the fox, you're going to come across the fox is going to come after you.
And
you're
then
gonna
you
swing,
hit it,
and
yeah.
You're going to swing with the
Well,
baseball
Where's
bat.
the 12
That
gauge and the
fox is gonna come
44?
up and
Well,
talk
that's
to you, right?
that we asked.
Yeah,
We asked for the
about it
BB.
earlier.
We wanted a
Yeah,
22.
me
and we
too.
came across
Put the
a BB.
baseball bat
So
down
I guess my
there,
point
like,
is like
fox.
you get and how and it was very frightening for my cousin. But my point is how in the large picture of things she will be okay. But in the large picture of things, how rabid we got trying to get the fucking thing, and
It's a
come to
great
find
use of the
out,
word rabid, because that's what you're worried about.
and come to find out, the next day we came back and the thing popped up again, and we killed the fucking thing. We killed the fox. We killed a fox.
It's interesting though. You got no problem killing the fox, but if you're if some guy came up,
Well-
I love
if
this.
some guy came up
Great
and bit your
conversation.
niece on
This
the
is off the
ankle,
rails, by the way.
If
It's
it was
great.
well, and I mean, not
would
to
you
get
go hunting the guy?
well, and that was kind of this underlying thing, and because it was an urban community, and there was this. I mean, and again, not I'm
And
just-
out there, that the answer is yes.
yeah, and there
it
were these
urban?
white folks, us, walking around with baseball bats and shit, walking around, and we were literally like, we kind of joked about it, like, well, these
Interesting.
I love that story.
African American fellas seeing
my
us
God.
running around with baseball bats and shit is very unsettling. But
Yeah.
but
I regret this. I'm pouring for you
well,
Yeah, I do too.
on this story.
I wish I could have stopped you.
my
Oh,
point
well.
is that one
Damage
when emotion overcomes,
Emotion.
logic
You
sometimes
introduced a
comes.
lot. You introduced a
Logic
lot.
comes out of the window.
This is why I said rage as my first for the first time.
Yeah, right.
When,
Okay.
on the other question.
This is
because,
why I'm saying you don't involve Bourbon and B.S. podcast.
Emotion,
Well-
rage.
Well, so for me, and Steve
I knew
knows
part
this.
2 was going to be interesting. I really did.
Steve-
I sincerely
Yeah.
hope you're not disappointed, ladies and gentlemen.
No,
because
they're-
I'm
They
not.
probably are.
No, Steve knows this as well as anyone in my life is that I see red. We had a conversation not too long ago about like a traffic light being a metaphor for life,
That's right.
saying
Wow.
whether you say
Wow.
red, where you see red, and I said no, I'm going through the fucking brick wall. So you see green and it's great. I don't see yellow. It's only red or green. Whether that's bad or indifferent, that's for me to discuss with myself.
Yeah.
But
And
that's the
All of
truth.
these are internalized. I mean, I think the thing about these questions is there
Well,
there
like I
isn't a
said-
right answer. None of these questions
You're
are
not
going to be
doing
like,
randoms, sir.
yeah,
You're
everybody,
not
yes,
doing
He's searching.
we agree.
No, I mean,
yeah,
he's
no, I know,
shuffling
I know,
the
I
deck
know.
Like I said,
now.
I grabbed a
I
bunch.
get that
un-
you're the host,
I-
but like, let's shuffle that deck.
Oh no, I grabbed these.
And I also know
grabbed
that
these
we're-
at random
we're
and,
way
and,
beyond
and
our
like
time.
No, we're not quite
no,
there yet.
No, we're getting close.
Unfortunately.
I'm gonna close it with one more, and like some of these were just kind of.
Yeah, when we stop recording, we should probably just,
Just
just do this.
Nice
grant,
fox.
I grant them at random.
Beautiful
which virtue is the
fox.
most
Yeah.
difficult to keep? I don't
nice
care.
fox.
If you were offered
Well,
the power to live a
maybe we'll
perfectly
post the
virtuous life,
fox.
would you take it? I don't care.
Fuck out of here.
How do you know whether you're caring for yourself or being selfish?
Good follow
I don't
through.
care.
And
I feel like we should
for
light
the-
these on fire.
for
or
the
something.
record, my my female cousin who is in the military, there's a female, the one who cracked his fucking skull.
Wow.
All right.
With a bat, or
Yeah.
was it with a BB gun?
So
I like
we-
this
with the
one.
butt
we
of a
hit it
BB
with-
gun.
we hit
wasn't
it
in
with-
the same fox.
Nah.
I like this one. I like
Doesn't
this
matter.
one to close things
All right.
out with. This
All
one's
right.
this one's a little lighter. You got something else you want to say?
No, I just actually give it a clean edit.
Was it a
What?
34-inch or a 32-inch?
What a clean edit. No, this is the last question.
34. You gotta get that reach out there,
Yeah.
you know, get that balance, you know what I mean?
All right.
Was
Very-
it wood?
Was it
that-
wood?
Was
Yeah.
it wood
Was
bat
it a
or
wood bat?
Oh
aluminum?
no, fucking aluminum.
All right.
So it was
It
a
was
nice
not
ping.
Louis. It wasn't a Louis. Like,
We heard it. Right, era good.
Let me
Was it double
close.
wall?
Let me close on
Sorry.
on some lighter
this is what happens when you
fare.
invite us on. dude.
Let me
This is
close
just
on some.
polluted
Let me
noise.
close on
This-
some lighter fare.
Your first 5-hour
How
podcast.
good are you at like editing audio? Because it's just a lot of.
He's
Luckily, I'm the best.
He's awesome. He's awesome.
We
You
need
know
your
what? You know what
card.
he does?
Yeah.
He takes himself out. Is what he does.
This last 20 minutes
Yeah,
is
yeah,
never
yeah.
gonna ever happen.
yeah, we'll never hear.
You didn't
Damn
exist.
it.
You didn't
On the
exist.
video, we'll see it, but on the audio, we'll never hear about the fox hunt.
You're missing something.
I thought there was 3 guys on that podcast.
You're missing
That
something,
guy.
folks. You're missing something.
But the YouTube, you're done.
You're fucked.
You're fucked.
He's fine. I've seen worse.
This is interesting.
That's very true.
This is an interesting question. Once again, it calls out to the different age groups that are in the room. How much money? This is our last question for the night too.
Ooh.
How much money do you need to be happy? I'll go first.
Ooh. All right.
Enough.
That's what my answer was.
Is it?
That ain't right.
Is it?
Come on.
No, so
No, it is. But
what's enough?
I'll explain.
I want-
What's enough?
I want 2.5 million. Period. That's it.
it's not enough.
Why?
At your age, that's not
Why?
enough.
Because I'll pay off
A
everything
year?
I have now.
A year?
What's the thought process?
I'll pay off everything I have now and just live in the same house and not have to work and be.
2.5 million would do it.
I'll live the same life I live now, with zero debt.
Okay.
Period. I mean, I would. Granted, I'd like a fucking $100 million, but that would be excess. To live comfortably, give me 2.5. I'm set.
2.5.
2.5.
Not 3. 2.5.
Three's
All right,
greedy.
I respect that.
Two's
Have you
not
done the
enough.
math?
I respect that.
No.
Have you done the math?
No, the very
He's just
little,
saying that.
the very
I like
two-
that. I like
these,
that.
These two are
The
close to
very
the same
little
age.
I
You're
make,
full
the
of
very
shit.
little
I'll
I
tell you that
make
right
is 2.5 would be great.
These two are close to the same age.
We are
I mean, I
actually
got a
been
cool
few
house.
So
I
you're
got a
saying,
cool
like,
job.
You're already doing the math.
I'd keep my
The math.
job.
You're saying it's not enough.
So it's interesting, like you say 2.5. I'm with Dino. Like enough is, and I don't know the answer because
Well, that's not fair to the
No,
question.
give a number.
absolutely
Give
is
a
fair.
number.
No, I would follow it up. I would
Give a
just leave it
number.
at enough.
Give a
That'd be
number.
like a
no,
yes or no
like so
answer.
we had on our last podcast, and Jake turned it around on me in a sense, which was awesome. You know, we were talking about like.
Did you think it was awesome? I thought you didn't like it. That
No,
much.
because I didn't think like so. It was funny. Like my answer was laughed at and everything else. It was like, so what's your next step? You know, like you have all this stuff going on.
We were
like,
talking
you're
about
about
moving forward, right, and
Right.
not just moving
This is
on.
about
So-
this
so-
kind of is about moving forward.
Yeah.
Our topic, as you are privy to, is moving forward versus what was it? Moving forward
Is
over
over
just
Episode
moving
71.
on,
Yep.
right? So moving forward over just moving on.
There's a difference.
There is a difference, and
Massive
so like
difference.
we talked about it for a while, and so he turned about. He's
It's
like,
a
all right,
great
so
topic, by the way. Good
thank
job.
you. It was one of those things that he turns around and he's like, all right, so like you got this girlfriend that you've been involved with for a year, and you know you got this house, and honestly, thanks to me after being divorced for 7-8 years and trying to like save up and on everything, like my mom actually contributed based on the history of our family, and so it was something that was able to get me into the situation I'm in, and then all of a sudden at the same time, so the stars are aligning, right? Like I've this girlfriend that came out of nowhere, and she is so amazing.
And her and Alicia are best friends, so it's even
Yeah,
best. It's
it's
even
awesome.
perfect.
So it's
Aw,
like
you guys are like a happy foursome.
Well, the Tinderbox.
Well, 24.
No, Tinderbox is doing well, right? You know, like we're having fun with that, and I enjoy my job. The B.S. cigar company could be bigger, but at the same time, so like there's this realization. So he turns around on me and he says, you know, where do you want to go with this? And what's your moving forward? And I was like, honestly, my moving forward is I'm thinking about putting a deck on the back of the house, and like our guests started laughing.
Everyone was laughing.
Yeah, and
Why?
I'm like, yeah. So like for me,
Because it was a funny response, but
But it's an honest response.
It wasn't this.
it was
like,
an honest response.
It wasn't this like revolutionary. Like I'm going to change the world starting next Wednesday based on this. It was like no, like I'm working on the podcast. If we do better with that. You know what I mean? We're gonna do better with that, and there's gonna be some income there to like make it self-sustaining.
Yeah.
With the Tinderbox, we're going to keep growing that. With the B.S. cigar company, we're going through these up and downs. With my house and everything else, I even said that. I was like, I've done the role of the fact that it's like I've got a lot of credit available to me based on my 800+ credit score. That's fun.
You have an 800+
Bragger.
credit score?
I do.
Wow.
So-
I do not.
Well, so I have that, and it's not going to like. So I've got. Do I want to put a deck on the house?
But you could do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, and then I would just wreck my credit score because I couldn't pay that shit off. Like honestly, it's like one of those things. Like I could, you know, I put a deck on the house. I also want to like, you know, drywall the garage, insulate that. I want to do the studio for the podcast. I want to do this. I want to furnish my basement. I want a dining room table.
But
and
you don't
chairs.
strike me as the type of person who would make foolish moves to ruin that credit score. Because
Never.
It wasn't about that, but in the past I had this, and I said that is in the past in my previous career, I had a profit sharing check coming every year, so it was like I could do that. Mm-hmm. I could buy a bedroom set, and it's not glamorous. We're not talking about millionaires in the house, but it's like one of those things. Like we literally talked about that with my girlfriend now. It's like we could use another chest of drawers, but the chest of drawers that matches my crate and barrel set that I have in my bedroom is $1,500, and it's like that $1,500 would be a great addition to the deck we could put on.
But doesn't that go back?
And she's
to
also
what,
like,
you
"Hey,
know,
let's take a trip to Jamaica. It's only like $3,400."
It's priorities. Priorities.
And that would
Oh,
be
it's
my.
huge.
That
The
would be
priority's
the.
huge.
You're echoing what I didn't answer when I said enough. When I say how much money do you need to be happy, enough to buy that $1,500 piece of furniture, enough to. You
Go
want
to Jamaica.
you want to go to Jamaica next week? We can go to Jamaica.
Yeah, but if you give me $2.5 million at
Yeah.
38 years old,
Yeah.
I can't budget that.
Yeah, but I could do
I'm
a lot
not-
with it.
You could do a lot with it.
And I don't mean like for me, at 24, I could pay off my debt and make a hell of a business. The difference
How
is
many
that,
retired people do you know that actually are still working though?
All of them.
but the difference is when you talk about like money, like in a situation like this,
Yeah.
most people think about an amount that will make them not have to work.
Right. I think
Me?
about it. I think about an amount that would pay off all my debt.
Me, I think about an
Yeah.
amount that would pay off a debt and catapult a business that I have in my heart that I want to do.
It's fair.
See, I got no problem with dying and owing money.
Right.
You know, I don't.
Dude, I just bought a house, right? And
if I die,
I love the smile on
if
his face
I
right now. It's
die
great for
and I'm in debt. Sorry, but
So,
but if I also had enough money to pay off my debts, all of them, just wipe the slate clean.
Yeah.
At 60 years of age, to be completely debt free would be enough.
yeah.
All right, because whenever I make after that,
You're going to Jamaica.
that's gravy.
Right.
You know,
And that's kind of my mentality. If you pay off, I would still at this age at 2.5, I'd still have to work. I'd still have to do my thing.
That's
but,
the key.
But
You
but
didn't say that.
What? No, I did say that. I did say that. But luckily, I am lucky to have a job in which I like at the radio station or with this or some of the other. Like I make income doing this, so I'm happy to be
and
able
we're
to
like
do
you.
that.
We hope that we can take this to whatever the next level might be, where we start to monetize it.
But
Well,
I
that's
could
the
also
brotherhood
just be
now,
like,
right?
be like, fuck it, I quit.
And there's
Exactly,
there's
yeah.
the business part of me, which I don't have a strong business acumen, but there's the part of me that knows that this podcasting, streaming, digital media, there's that part of me that knows that that's the future, and I just have to educate myself enough to know how to take advantage of it and ride that wave to make more money with it.
What else?
In the process. That's the business part. The creative part of me could give a shit.
You're adaptive on the creative part of it. And so, like, at 35, 38 years old, where we are, you know, it's one of those things that, like, you give me $2.5 million. That's probably enough. And I will not get excessive with my spending.
It's enough to keep
However,
my current lifestyle through.
What you
through
think,
time,
right?
Well,
So
hopefully,
you
hopefully,
get
hopefully.
2.5 million at your age, it's different. I get 2.5 million.
you're
Well,
fucking set, man.
yeah.
My age.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be,
Go to Vegas.
I'm being a little more.
please.
What I'll say
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that, Dino, what you said, though, is like that you can make more money off of this. You've been around this business
Yeah.
for enough years that podcasts, we don't know where this is going to go.
No, it's just now
So we don't
starting
know if
to
Facebook
implode
Live's
and
going to go
explode.
there,
Yeah.
YouTube Live. We don't know what's going to be the, like, in 5 years from now, we don't know what's going to happen. You can actually have this huge following in the current medium that you think is the next thing,
I do.
which is amazing. And you could have 20 years, you can have 30 years, and all of a sudden you're 90, 100 years old, and you're like,
God
yeah,
God
I
bless.
fucking
I
killed
hope
it.
so.
You know what I mean? But, like, for those of us that are, like, 30s and 20s,
24.
when he's 60,
Yeah.
podcast might be the
Yeah.
8-track.
Yeah, it might be.
You know
It
what I
might
mean?
be. For me right
Like
now.
walking into your house tonight, it was like I saw all your
saw a lot of-
movies. You know what I mean? I
saw a lot-
love it.
You
I
saw a
love
lot of
it.
old school here in this house.
But I love that. But it's
Yeah.
it's one of those
And I
things
feel
that
that
you-
with
and I
radio.
have an affection for old school
Yeah.
things, but I have just enough presence of mind to know what the future is as
you have
well.
business people though that like the radio. It's funny. Like you talk about radio, it's like XM, Sirius, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, hey, we're gonna take it to satellites and all that stuff. And now they're struggling because radio is still a thing, but print isn't. Like print is struggling. You know what I mean? Like broadcast news is struggling, but you don't know what's going to happen going forward. So that's where you cover all your bases.
And for
You,
me,
you do a full medium, not
Right.
media.
That's like
or you
our
do,
friend
you do a full media, not just
Scott.
medium.
right,
Scott from Ohio Bourbon Times.
right. Who
Which he thought that he was going to bring this great.
and he's still
He's working on it.
he's working on it.
Yeah.
because and I can't wait for it to come out
Yeah.
because
I love trends, though.
I write for that. You
Right,
know,
exactly.
I've already written 2 columns
Yeah.
for it, and
And he's still working on it.
we're still waiting for the.
Yeah.
And there's a nostalgia factor about some of that. and-
No,
Dude,
that-
nostalgia is coming back. Like people
well,
don't
nostalgia always comes back.
like, and that's what people and we can talk about whiskey. I could talk about whiskey for 10 hours, but
Prove
the
it.
fact, the fact,
Turn the
We're
Bourbon
out of
B.S.
time. We're out of
podcast,
time.
he'll prove it.
the fact that is why the whiskey industry and cigars have came back.
Because
Nostalgia,
of nostalgia, sure.
nostalgia, and being true to your core has came back, and that's what I fucking love.
You ride through cycles, right? I mean, it's one of those things like the movies and the TV shows, and now like I was riding to lunch with to visit my mom, and Liz and I are driving through the car, and she says, "Hey, have you heard the new Miley Cyrus song?" I'm like, "No."
Still listening to Frank, man.
No, so she plays that song. I'm like, that's interesting because there's a lot of '80s theme to that.
Right.
And then she's like, well, "Have you heard the new Taylor Swift song?" I was like, "No." And she's like, plays that. I was like, "Interesting, '80s style."
80s style.
And
right?
and I had actually heard the new Katy Perry song, and I was like, after I heard that, it was on the radio, and that DJ, literally was like, "It's so great to see this '80s theme coming back." It's
Come back.
It's all about
already been
fashion,
back.
music,
Sure.
media,
everything
movies,
comes,
everything.
cycles
It
comes back.
Yeah. You
Here's
bring
the
it
deal.
back
It's
to your
back when
childhood.
crack was in fashion.
You know,
So crack's the next one. Yeah.
On
I'm
crack,
envious. I'm envious.
then
of the
don't
fact
come back.
That he's 24. I'm envious of the fact that you guys are in your mid 30s. At 60, I got to be honest with you. I feel like my clock's ticking, and
Yeah.
and I've mentioned this on previous podcasts. I still feel that before it's all said and done, that I've got one more chapter to finish, and whatever is
You're young,
coming
man.
up.
You're young.
Huh?
You're young.
No, I mean,
You got
I-
30
I-
plus,
I'm-
40
But the
years.
urgency's there.
I don't feel 60. This 60 is not my father's 60.
No, your energy level and your presence is
Is-
off the charts.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
B12,
It's not. I do take B12
B12
every day.
shots.
Yeah,
B12.
right around 4 o'clock every day.
you go.
Yeah. Keeps me up till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Don't get me started. We had a whole podcast on supplements, and we can get into that.
But my point is that like I do feel a sense of urgency. So when we say how much money do you need to be happy, when I say enough to kind of settle the score.
But what's enough, Dino?
Enough to settle the score. Enough to be debt free. Enough to take care of the people that I care about and love. To make sure that they're cared for. If I can leave with that amount of money to be enough, do I need $100 million? That would be great. But
Well, that's why I just
but I
threw
tell you
out
what I
that
would do with it.
lowball number,
I tell
yeah.
you what I would do with it. I would take care of me and then the people that I care about,
Right.
and then I would probably donate it to things that I love and
Right.
care about.
Based on your mindset, and I think around the table, that the answer to the question for me is not enough anymore. Like based off of hearing you guys talk, it's of excess. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not. I don't. No one knows how they're going to react if they have like this unlimited amount of income.
This windfall,
right?
yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like, all right. So you give me like I'm 38 years old. You give me $100 million, and it's like literally like, all right. So financial planner who I have.
Yeah,
All
as
right,
do
so,
I.
So here's $99 million. I'm gonna have fun with $1 million. Keep that in my available accounts. I'm not gonna go buy this huge house. I'm not
No.
gonna do it. I might like.
You might not buy the huge house, but I might buy a house for somebody else.
No, I'd probably buy a house like this, where it's like like it's a
Well,
great
I guess
place.
that's where
I might
coming
buy a
with
house
the
for somebody.
2.5.
I might buy a house for somebody who's never had a house.
I don't have.
I might
that, you know what I mean?
buy.
Like,
I might.
So
But that's what makes you you.
My daughter lives in New York City. She works in 4 different bars to cover her rent. I would take my $100 million
and
and
Would
I
you
would
buy the bars,
and-
or would you buy her apartment?
I'd
Oh,
buy
I'd
her
buy the
apartment.
bars.
I'd
No,
buy
I
her-
would buy the bars.
And the apartment
you don't run that
complex.
shit. You don't run that
No,
shit.
but that
I don't
equals to
wanna-
more
I
money.
don't wanna- What do I need with a bar in New York City?
Safe
4 of them.
investment. So yeah. So.
But I would buy my
excess.
daughter the apartment.
But give me an excess of any, like, give me $100 million just so that I can just never have a worry about it.
It's
Literally.
that's all it's about. So it's-
Do I want to buy
not to worry
a
and to
new
be able to take
tire
care
on
of
my
everybody
car?
else?
Sure, just I got you.
You guys mind if
Tire.
I answer this question?
Quickly, because we're running out of time.
No, we're
500,000
We're out of time.
500,000
We're out of
is
time.
enough.
We're out of time.
500,000 is enough
is enough.
at 24.
And the reason why is because it would take care of my 70,000 in debt due to college
Sure.
loans and
Sure.
credit card. and then the rest would be to start up a distillery.
That's what we're talking about, and
fun.
that's
That's
why
fun.
and my lowball makes.
See, mine isn't. My
know.
ventures aren't towards being okay. It's not towards being like keeping a status quo with myself. It's to giving myself a chance. And I've talked with Steve a lot about this because the past like year or so, not to get like too deep, but it's like I've been jumping from job to job, and I just need someone to give me that chance. So
I can relate to that.
when that happens, I'm full go. But until that happens, I'm struggling.
Dude, when I was
man.
your age, I was filling vending machines during the day and working security at night.
Yeah.
I had 2 jobs. So yeah, you'll get it.
Yeah.
You'll get it. And I'm not blowing smoke up your ass when I
Yeah.
say this. You'll get it because I think you have the right mindset.
Yeah.
And I had the right mindset. I knew then that this was not going to be my life.
Right.
It's not going to end here. I'm not going to be filling vending machines and working 2 jobs for the rest of my life. I'm going to get to some place in my life, and I've gotten there on different levels, but yet I still feel that there's something else. One last
You're still there.
thing.
Can I ask you one question?
Absolutely.
When you were my age, Dino, when you were filling vending machines and
Yeah.
having two jobs, right?
2 jobs.
And working your ass off.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of aspirations, I assume.
I would sit in the
knowing that
garage
the
and
man
write
you
short
are-
stories and
Exactly.
and so forth and so on. I would,
Let me ask you this.
yeah.
Did you have any idea on where to go, but you knew what the main purpose was is to keep moving forward?
I knew that I had to keep moving
You
forward.
had to push. You didn't necessarily know where or how, but when you woke up, you took one step in front of the other.
Yeah, I
you
didn't
move
think
forward.
that this is good. This is my life and I'm done, and I
That's
just
the
need
key.
to accept it. I kept thinking about the future.
That's
and,
the key.
And one more thing, keep moving
a great point,
forward.
great point.
So it goes back to what you said. There's moving on and moving forward.
Yeah, so like the podcast we had was moving on is focusing on the whatever you're moving on from, right?
Right.
So that was the in a nutshell. I'll be brief, but moving on is moving from a typically negative experience. So relationship, job, whatever the experience is, moving forward, and it's a semantics thing, but it's moving forward is literally building and going forward, sticking to the plan. And it starts. Step 1 is actually like what we discovered was the step 1 is moving on, and then as quickly as you can, emotionally, switch to moving forward, so that then all of a sudden you get a new relationship. You're not comparing it. You know what I mean? Like you're not just moving on anymore. You're moving forward. New job. You're not comparing your new job or new career to your old job. It's leave that past behind, because moving on is that first step. All your friends say, move on. You got to move on. Come out with us. Like, you know what? Like, throw your resume out there. Like, whatever it is. Like, hey, you used to be fit. Like, let's get back to it. No, it's you are moving forward, because unless you want to spend your next 20, 30, 40 years moving on, you actually have to just move forward and keep building off of where you're at.
Those are
It's
well said.
nutshell.
I'm going to answer this question for everybody because we got to wrap it up. We really do. But I'm going to answer this for all of us because I think I can after tonight's podcast. Do you have any responsibility to use your talents? The answer is yes. I think we are all using our talents in whatever way possible to move forward and to move on. All of us, be it the podcast, be it John Whitney making films, me
We
writing.
all have greatness inside
We
of
all
us.
have greatness. You do have a responsibility to use your talents, and if you do not use your talents, that is a waste. So if you have talents, ladies and gentlemen who are watching and listening, if you have talents that you doubt, that you are concerned about, that you don't think are good enough, fuck that and move forward with your talents. You do have a responsibility to yourself. This has been Whiskey Business. This
That was
is
secondary
Well,
bottle.
we closed with the Four Roses.
We close with the Four Roses small batch, which we have had on the podcast before, so we can't count it as an actual bottle. But
What'd you guys think of that Maker's Mark? You like
the
it?
Maker's
It's
Mark was
so
wonderful.
good.
You like
the
it,
Maker's
Greg?
Mark was
So
wonderful.
nice.
I'm gonna
Very
wrap
nice.
things up because I've gotten the nod from both of these guys.
Well, and just real quick,
I'm
business-wise,
trying to wrap it up, and now you're
because I got to do the business that
All
we
right, do
always
the business quickly.
Subscribe and rate and review us on
Yes.
iTunes.
Yes.
Tell all your friends about us.
Yes.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also YouTube. Subscribe. Hit the little subscribe button on YouTube.
Hit it, please.
Let me say one thing about the whole subscribe.
This is what happens in our closing remarks.
The
is that everyone-
fact that you guys actually show the comments that people leave,
Yeah.
that's a great moment for people that want to leave reviews.
Bring it.
So if you want your review to be
There you
read,
go.
it better be a damn good one.
Yeah,
on
read it-
the Whiskey
read a good
Business
one, and we'll-
podcast.
and we'll
you
read
It
it.
feeds us too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, but
gave us an
anyway,
idea.
There you go. Just share your love on the Instawebs.
Boom.
Done.
Mic drop.
Don't
Amazing.
touch me.
Whiskey business. I'm gonna touch you more now.
This part two. This part
Whiskey
two will never
Business
air.
is a Never the Luck production, produced on the audio side by this lovely little bastard, Greg Hansberry, and produced on the video side. God help him,
Is that your boy?
John Whitney,
My boy.
with his boy who's got a birthday coming up.
Very nice.
He'll be 21.
He's gonna be 21.
Oh,
We're
John
gonna bring some
Whitney.
whiskey bottles
The
out.
man behind the curtain on the video, John Whitney.
A lot of Jack Daniels at Dino's house.
And yeah, there is. There's a lot of everything in my house. And of course, this is our second part of with the boys from Bourbon
Bourbon and B.S.,
Bourbon
yeah.
and B.S. podcast. Tune into all their stuff. We discussed it in part 1, but quickly in part 2, tell them where they can find it all.
So yeah, Bourbon and B.S. podcast on Facebook. We do live every Wednesday. We do the podcast side of it, the audio. Every Friday we upload that, so that's when it comes live. YouTube, and I'll say this right now, like I'm gonna speak for Jake. Next time we need all three of you guys on, and we just got
let's
we
do
got
it.
a longer table.
Are we getting invited back to
Yeah,
be Bourbon
so
and
that's
B.S.?
damn
Oh,
sure.
yeah,
For damn
nice.
sure.
Here's what's gonna happen: is
Beautiful.
that John's actually gonna be on the podcast.
I would love that.
shit.
I would
Yeah.
love
No
that.
cameras,
Come
no
on.
cameras.
You know,
We
I tell
need
you what,
on.
John's gonna be. You guys,
My snarky.
you
No,
guys,
no,
are
no,
gonna be, you
no.
guys, you guys are gonna be in the background,
no,
right?
you know what?
So
Bring 'em.
he's
Bring 'em
gonna be
both.
on. He's gonna talk about you
let
guys.
me hang around in the
Yeah,
garage
absolutely.
and just walk around.
Dino,
Talk to these two.
Dino, you're in charge of the video.
talk
right now.
talk to
Yeah,
these
absolutely,
two.
Yeah.
I don't need to be back on it.
No,
Talk,
it's a-
bring
it's a-
those
it's a
guys
friendly,
back on.
So
I love these guys.
Your podcast is an extension of the garage, is an extension of the cigar culture, the whiskey culture. Obviously, it's this podcast, part 2, has literally been around the fact that when you get together with good people, guys, girls, no matter what, you get around with good people and you're hanging out, you're having a conversation. There's no anger, there's no offense to anything said.
No.
It's literally about just having good conversation, because that's what people actually grow from.
and
This has been the
and
best BS ever.
That and a lot of truth.
Yeah.
Always.
No, we appreciate it so much for you
BS doesn't
accommodating
mean
us.
bad.
Dino,
Jake,
Greg,
please.
John, it's been a pleasure for us to be on this podcast,
Absolutely.
and we hope for this friendship within the podcast
It will
world
continue.
to be
The only thing
more.
that needs to happen post podcast, Jake came over
Yeah.
and hung out during a hockey
last Blue
Hockey
Jackets
game.
game.
last Blue Jackets game. You
couldn't
need
be
to.
here.
You need. I know you couldn't be here,
be here.
but I'm saying there's football coming up. There's a lot of reasons for you to come over here just to hang.
I'm in.
Just to hang. I would
I'm
love
in.
to have you. man.
Women's World Cup.
I would love. Yeah.
Yeah, go US.
Go USA, man.
Yes. Go
Those
US.
women are strong.
Yeah, they are strong.
Hey, guys, thank you. All right. So, Whiskey Business is a Never the Luck production, produced on the audio side by Greg Hansberry, John Whitney, the guest, Bourbon and B.S. podcast. I'm Dino Tripodis. Thank you so much. And until
Thank
the
you.
next bottle, see ya.
Cheers.